I'm Marlene Zuk. I'm a professor in the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior, and I'm also an associate dean for faculty.
And then what is your educational background?
I was a biology major when I was an undergraduate, although I wasn't at all sure what I wanted to do with that at the time. I liked animals a lot as a kid growing up, and it took me a long time to realize that liking animals meant that you could actually make a living being a biologist. When I finished my undergraduate education, I spent about 3 years out of school and then doing a whole bunch of different things, and then finally did decide I wanted to get a PhD, went to graduate school at the University of Michigan. I'd done all of the rest of my education in California, which is where I grew up. So I got my PhD at the University of Michigan, and then did a postdoc at the University of New Mexico, and took a faculty position after that at the University of California, Riverside, before coming to the U of M.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey? You mentioned it before, but when you first realized that you liked science, how did those passions translate as you progressed throughout your career and you took your classes, your extracurriculars and everything?
So like I said, I was never one of those kids that knew what I wanted to do from when I was really small, and I don't come from a family where there were any academics at all. I mean, my parents supported education kind of in the vague general sense, but they didn't, I don't think, they had no idea what, neither of them had been to college, and they had no idea what either going to college was like, or certainly what a professor did, or that one could, again, make a living with that. And I think, like a lot of students who were interested in biology, there was kind of this assumption that I would become a doctor. I think my parents, to the day they died, were still kind of disappointed I never became a doctor. Although, as I tell people now, you know, I am a doctor. I'm just not the kind that helps people. So I think it took me a long time, and it wasn't until I started taking classes as an undergraduate that I realized, oh, you could actually study questions in ecology and evolution and animal behavior and do that as not only a way to make a living, but as something that was a, you know, productive way of life.
So what were some of the biggest obstacles that you encountered throughout your journey?
I don't know that I encountered any obstacles in the form of, you know, discrete things that prevented me from doing what I was supposed to do. There was certainly a lot of uncertainty about what it would mean to be an academic, and I was really shocked to go to graduate school and meet people whose parents would be interested in papers that they were going to try and publish in journals, because I had never had any experience with that. But, you know, I had a lot of good both mentors and a lot of support from the friends that I had and my fellow graduate students that helped a lot with that. But yes, so certainly the idea is not that you have to have someone who shows you exactly what the path is like in order to be able to do it.
What do you like to do outside of science and outside of your work, and how does that fit in with the work that you're doing?
Some of what I like to do does fit in. I always joke that I love to travel, but I totally don't understand how people who aren't interested in biology, like, what do they do when they travel? Because when I travel, I really like to look at birds or, you know, nature, or understand stuff about animals in places that I go, and almost always when I travel, it's somehow, perhaps indirectly, related to my work. And I realize that for other people, they actually like just go on vacation, and that seems really odd to, like, isn't it boring to just go on a hike and not know anything about the, you know, stuff that you see? So I like to travel, and I like, you know, hiking and being outside. I also, I don't know, I like, you know, lots of other stuff that probably other people do too.
Could you tell us a little bit about the research that you're doing in your lab right now?
Yeah, so I work in animal behavior and evolution. I'm interested, I always tell people that the real shorthand version of it is I do bug sex, so I'm interested in how evolution acts differently on males and females, and because of some work that we started doing quite a number of years ago, I've also gotten interested in how rapidly evolution can happen. I mostly study insects, and I study crickets in Hawaii in part because they show the rapid evolution in a context that I find interesting.
What do you like best about the work that you do?
That it gets me to be able to find out new things, and sometimes you have to kind of laugh at yourself because you think, oh, the cool new thing that you discovered is something that probably no one else cares about. But to me, it is truly extraordinary that I can find out something that absolutely no one has found out before. And see, that's a lot of what got me out of being interested in medicine. I mean, I really was interested in either being a veterinarian or being a doctor for a little while. And then it just seemed like, well, but it was kind of like being an auto mechanic only for people or dogs or whatever. And you were just kind of executing what other people had thought about. And I wanted to come up with the original ideas and the original discoveries. And even if your discovery is fairly small, it's still your discovery. And it really is extraordinary to do that.
What do you think has been the coolest moment of your career? I read somewhere online that you have an honorary doctorate from University of Finland.
Well, so I don't know if that was the coolest moment in my career, but it was pretty amazing. In part because when you get an honorary doctorate or any doctorate in Finland, you get a sword, and like actually a sword, like a sword, so there's a big ceremony, and it's all very formal, and part of that consists of you getting the sword. And actually, the funniest part was it was a good lesson in how people from different cultures just have different assumptions, because there were a whole bunch of us getting honorary doctorates from all different fields, and they go through but it's almost like you have like a rehearsal beforehand, and they show you what's going to happen and how this is all going to work, and they explain the customs and the ceremony. And someone asked sort of toward the end, but so why is it that we get a sword? And the person kind of said, well, but because you're getting a doctorate, and so when you get a PhD, you get a sword. And he kept saying, no, but why a sword? And so it actually took quite a while, because they just said, well, because that's what you get when you get a doctorate. And I thought, well, but we don't do that in the United States, so. So I don't know if that was it was pretty crazy. It was a pretty fun experience.
If you could change anything about your job, what would it be?
Having more recognition for the importance of basic science, that not everybody. So I was talking before about discovery, and so I think making discoveries about the way the world works is incredibly important for everybody's future. And it means that if people understood that not all scientists are trying to cure cancer or solve problems of climate change or make the air and water clean, those are fantastic and important and essential goals, but not all scientists do or have to start out doing their work with those goals in mind. Instead, just learning more about the world and how it works is incredibly important, and I wish there was more support for that, both from the government and from people at large and from other academics.
Then you kind of answered this question, but what is one piece of advice that you have for aspiring scientists?
I think everybody who's interested in science should make sure that they are really interested in it. Don't do it because you think that other people are going to think better of you. Don't do it because you think that it's the only way that you're going to be able to remain intellectually engaged, because there's lots of ways to do that. If you're genuinely interested in the science, then you can get over a lot of the other problems that happen.